The ground shook beneath Elias Rowan's boots, jagged rocks rattling and dust choking the air. He barely had time to leap aside as a chunk of cliff tumbled past, smashing into the canyon below with a roar that shook his chest. His heart pounded. This planet had no mercy for the careless, or the slow. Elias wiped sweat from his brow, scanning the slope for another danger. That's when he saw it, a tiny creature huddled against the jagged rock, barely larger than a child's fist. Its scales shimmered with a pale, almost translucent green, and its wings were thin and trembling. The hatchling's eyes were wide, desperate and wet with fear. Elias froze for a heartbeat, stunned by the raw, helpless look in its gaze. Something about it tugged at him, a silent plea he couldn't ignore. Before he could react, a shadow darkened the canyon. A predator bird, massive and sleek, swooped down with claws curved like daggers. Its screech cut through the air and the hatchling squealed in terror. Elias's chest tightened. He couldn't just run. The little creature had no chance on its own. He had to act, and fast. He sprinted forward, scooping the hatchling into his arms. It wriggled at first, wings flapping weakly, but his steady grip and calm voice seemed to reassure it. "I've got you," he whispered. "You're safe now." The creature's eyes locked with his, a strange warmth passing between them. Elias felt a shock of something he couldn't name. Was it trust? Gratitude? He didn't have time to think. The predator bird was closing in, wings slicing the wind with terrifying speed. Elias darted toward a narrow ledge along the cliff, his boots scraping loose stones. The hatchling clung tighter, its tiny body trembling against his chest. He knew the ledge was risky. One misstep and both of them would tumble into the chasm below. But the alternative, staying in the open, was worse. The predator would not miss. As he ran, the hatchling emitted a soft, strange hum. Elias froze for a fraction of a second, confused. The sound wasn't like any animal he had ever heard. It was almost intelligent. His pulse quickened. Could this tiny creature really communicate? Or was he imagining things under stress? The hum grew louder, resonating in his chest like a pulse, and the hatchling tilted its head, eyes brightening with something like recognition. Elias felt a spark of hope. The predator bird lunged, talons extended, and Elias dove to the side, hitting the ground hard. Rocks slid under his feet, scraping his palms, but he rolled, keeping the hatchling safe. The bird's claws raked the ledge where he had just been standing, missing by inches. He scrambled up, adrenaline making his body move faster than he thought possible. Ahead, a narrow canyon offered shelter, a twisting maze of jagged rocks and shadows. Elias's mind raced. He couldn't stay on the open cliffside. He needed a plan, even if it was just to survive the next few minutes. He adjusted his grip on the hatchling, whispering, "Hang on. We're almost there." Its wings beat weakly, brushing against his chest, and for a moment, it seemed to lean into him, trusting him completely. Elias felt a rush of determination. He wouldn't fail this tiny life. The predator circled, screeching, testing him. Elias glanced around and spotted loose rocks above. If he could trigger a small slide, maybe he could slow the bird down. Timing had to be perfect. He threw a jagged stone upward with all his strength. It hit the right spot, and a cascade of rocks tumbled down, startling the predator. The bird screeched and veered away, temporarily blocked. Elias's chest heaved with relief. A small victory, but only a brief one. He didn't have time to celebrate. The canyon mouth loomed ahead, a dark gap in the cliff. As he ran toward it, the hatchling shivered violently and pressed against him. Elias realized its wings were too weak for flight. Somehow, he would have to protect it in the unfamiliar cave. His mind raced with questions. Where had it come from? Why was it alone? And why did it seem almost human in its trust toward him? Just as he reached the canyon's edge, the ground beneath him trembled again, harder than before. Dust and pebbles slid into the dark opening, and a deep, low rumble echoed from within. Elias froze, heart pounding. Something massive stirred inside. He instinctively held the hatchling closer, feeling its tiny heartbeat thrum against his own. A faint glow pulsed from the cave's depths, casting eerie shadows across the jagged walls. The hatchling stiffened and let out a soft, resonant cry that seemed to answer the cave itself. Elias swallowed hard. The light was too precise, too deliberate to be natural. Whatever was inside this place, it was waiting, or watching. Elias took a cautious step forward, the hatchling pressing tighter against him. His pulse raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. Every instinct screamed danger, yet he couldn't turn back. He had already chosen to save this creature. Now the choice was whether to step into the unknown, or risk losing everything. And as the ground trembled again, A shadow larger than the predator bird flickered across the walls, moving toward them from the deep, glowing darkness. Elias froze. He knew without a doubt that this was only the beginning. Elias's boots scraped against loose stones as he pressed deeper into the glowing canyon. The hatchling trembled against his chest, its tiny wings quivering like fragile leaves. The soft pulse of light from the cave walls illuminated the scales along its back, making them glint as if alive. Elias felt a strange connection to the creature, a silent plea in its eyes that fueled his determination. He couldn't fail it, not now, not ever. The predator bird's screech echoed faintly from above, a chilling reminder that danger had not disappeared. Elias darted around a jagged rock formation, scanning for anything he could use to slow it if it came back. His hands brushed against the walls, and he noticed the strange, smooth texture, almost like polished metal under the rock dust. The walls hummed softly when pressed. He frowned, curiosity and caution twisting together. This wasn't just a cave, it was something else, something ancient. A sudden crack startled him. A section of the ceiling shifted, sending small rocks tumbling down. Elias dove, rolling across the floor, clutching the hatchling tightly. The creature let out a startled chirp but didn't fall. Elias's heart pounded. "It's okay," he whispered, "I've got you." The tiny heartbeat against his chest was fierce, almost defiantly strong despite its size and weakness. A small victory but fleeting. Deeper into the canyon, the floor became uneven, jagged spikes of stone jutting up like teeth. The hatchling flapped its wings weakly, brushing them against Elias's arms. He realized its strength was fading fast. Starvation, fear, and exhaustion had drained it. If he didn't find nourishment soon, it wouldn't survive the night. Elias scanned the canyon desperately. "There has to be something," he muttered under his breath. "Something to eat." Suddenly, a faint shimmer appeared along the walls, a vine-like growth that glowed with a soft, bioluminescent green. Elias reached for it, carefully plucking one of the stalks. The moment it touched the hatchling's mouth, its eyes widened. It began to lap at the vine eagerly, wings twitching with renewed energy. Elias exhaled, relief washing over him. One small payoff, one life sustained. Yet the threat outside remained, waiting. A low rumble shook the canyon. Elias froze, pulse spiking. The predator bird hadn't given up. He glanced upward and saw its shadow stretch across the rocky walls. The creature circled, watching, waiting for an opening. Elias clenched his jaw. He couldn't fight it head-on. His arms weren't strong enough, his weapons too primitive, but he could outsmart it. His eyes scanned the ceiling, the walls, anything that might help. A ledge above jutted out, lined with loose stones. A risky plan formed instantly in his mind. He whispered to the hatchling, "Hold tight. We're going to make it through this." Elias gathered a pile of stones and threw them at the ledge. The stones tumbled down, clattering across the canyon floor. The predator screeched, startled, claws catching empty air. It veered away for a moment. Another small payoff, another chance bought with human ingenuity and courage. They pressed forward, deeper into the canyon, until the path narrowed into a twisting corridor. The walls glowed faintly, revealing strange symbols etched into the stone, curved, flowing lines that pulsed faintly with light. Elias's curiosity flared, but he kept moving. The hatchling's wings brushed against his arms, almost as if urging him onward. He realized with a chill that this creature wasn't just dependent on him for survival. It seemed to understand, almost guiding him towards safety. A sudden hiss made him stop. A thin ribbon of mist slithered across the floor, glowing faintly with the same green light. Elias leapt back, keeping the hatchling safe. The mist coiled, alive, reacting to their movements. It was a trap, or a defense mechanism of some kind. He frowned, scanning for a way past without triggering it. His mind raced, calculating angles, speed, and timing. One misstep and both of them could be engulfed. He remembered the bioluminescent vines. Carefully, he plucked a few more and laid them across the mist. The ribbon seemed to disrupt it, creating a small path. He moved cautiously, then ran, clutching the hatchling, hopping over the glowing mist with precise steps. His heart pounded, adrenaline sharp in his veins. The hatchling chirped faintly, almost as if praising him. Another tiny reward, proof that clever thinking could protect life. But the canyon had more surprises. A deep crack opened in the wall ahead, revealing a pool of liquid that shimmered with strange energy. Elias froze. The liquid emitted warmth and a faint hum. The hatchling's wings twitched toward it as if recognizing it. Elias knelt, holding the hatchling over the pool. It dipped its mouth and a tiny ripple of energy coursed through it. Its eyes brightened, scales glowing faintly. Elias's chest tightened with emotion. He had never seen anything like it, and yet, somehow he felt this moment was a turning point. Then came the pattern interrupt. The ground trembled violently beneath them. Dust and small stones fell from the ceiling. A deep, rolling growl echoed through the canyon, not from the predator bird but from somewhere larger, deeper. Elias's pulse spiked. Something else was down there, something massive, alive and aware of their presence. The hatchling stiffened, pressing against him with a force that belied its size. Elias rose slowly, eyes scanning the corridor. The glow from the pool reflected off the walls, casting shifting shadows. The deeper hum of the cave mingled with the growl, and he realized that survival was no longer just about outrunning the bird. They had stumbled into a place far older and far more dangerous than either of them had imagined. A shadow flickered across the far wall, too big to be the predator bird, too fast to be a rockslide. Elias gritted his teeth, tightening his hold on the hatchling. His instincts screamed that whatever was coming next would test everything he had, the courage, the intelligence, and the determination that had brought them this far. And just as the rumble grew louder, the hatchling's wings flared with a sudden bright pulse of energy, lighting the corridor like a living torch. The glow revealed something massive moving in the darkness. Elias's heart jumped. Whatever it wasn't friendly. Elias froze, heart hammering as the massive shadow moved closer. The light from the hatchling's pulsing wings flickered across jagged walls, revealing scales larger than any he had seen, shimmering faintly in a pattern that seemed almost deliberate. The growl that followed wasn't a bird's, nor any predator he'd known. It vibrated in the floor beneath his boots, deep and ancient, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. The hatchling pressed closer to him, trembling but alert. Elias swallowed hard. He didn't know what they were facing, but running blind would be suicide. He scanned the walls, the floor, anything that could give him an advantage. His eyes fell on a series of alien symbols etched into the stone, faintly glowing in rhythm with the hatchling's pulse. Without thinking he touched one. The glow flared and the shadows shifted, revealing a hidden alcove barely big enough for them to squeeze into. He dove inside, holding the hatchling tight. The massive presence swept past, claws scraping the canyon floor, shaking dust and loose stones into the narrow space. Elias pressed himself flat against the wall, chest tight, listening as the creature paused, sniffed the air, or maybe sensed energy. The hatchling's pulse throbbed stronger now, resonating with the cave. Elias's mind raced. Could it communicate? Could it defend itself? Then the unexpected happened. The hatchling's wings flared wider, and the pulse grew into a steady glow, bright and intense. Elias gasped. Tiny tendrils of light shot from the hatchling, wrapping around the alien symbols on the wall. The markings began to hum in response, vibrating softly. The massive presence stopped again, growling as if uncertain. Elias realized something astonishing. The hatchling wasn't just weak and helpless. It could manipulate the cave's energy. He gripped the hatchling tighter. You're more than just a baby, he whispered. The creature chirped softly, almost as if understanding. Another pulse of energy flared from its wings, stronger this time. The alcove shook, and a section of the wall slid open, revealing a hidden chamber. Inside, the walls were covered with murals, massive and ancient, depicting dragons of all shapes and sizes, wings spread, eyes glowing, guarding strange devices and glowing pools of liquid. Elias's mind raced. These weren't just creatures, they were guardians. And this hatchling, it was the last link. Suddenly, the massive shadow lunged again. Elias ducked instinctively, rolling across the floor with the hatchling in his arms. The creature's pulse surged again, and he felt a shock of heat run through him. The energy wrapped around the predator, forcing it back. Elias's eyes widened. The hatchling wasn't just powerful, it was protective, attuned to him in a way he couldn't explain. A thought struck him. If this hatchling could interact with the cave's energy, perhaps it could defend itself, perhaps even fight back against the predators that had hunted its kind to near extinction. He adjusted his grip, whispering instructions as best he could. Light up. Keep it calm. Focus. The hatchling's wings quivered, but its eyes met his with fierce determination. Elias felt pride and fear at the same time. This tiny creature was already braver than most humans he'd known. The predator bird screeched from above, but Elias ignored it. His attention was on the shadows of something far larger moving in the chamber. He edged closer to the murals, noticing one detail. A pool of liquid, similar to the one in the canyon but much larger. The glow from it pulsed in time with the hatchling. His pulse quickened. That's it, he muttered. That's what you're meant to do. Carefully he moved toward the pool, the hatchling's wings brushing against his chest. The massive presence hesitated, sensing the energy surging from both of them. Elias's mind worked quickly. If he could get the hatchling to touch the pool, maybe it would awaken something, strengthen itself, reveal its full potential, even save its species. The hatchling chirped, flapping weakly but determined. Elias lowered it to the edge of the glowing liquid. Its tiny claws dipped in and the pool rippled, casting waves of light across the chamber. The murals shimmered, and for a heartbeat, Elias saw visions. Dragons soaring above alien cities, protecting creatures, manipulating energy, standing as guardians of entire worlds. His breath caught. The hatchling had not just survived, it had inherited something vast, something powerful, something the predators could never understand. But the chamber wasn't safe yet. The ground shook violently and a second shadow emerged, larger than the first, moving with precision and purpose. Elias gritted his teeth. He had to protect the hatchling or everything would be lost. He glanced around for anything to use. The murals hinted at mechanisms, sliding stones, hidden channels. Using instinct and intelligence, he pressed against a section of wall, triggering a cascade of stones that fell between them and the massive shadow. It screeched in frustration, momentarily slowed. Another micro payoff, their survival hung by human cleverness and quick thinking. The hatchling pulsed again, stronger now. Light spilled from its wings, and the massive shadow hesitated, circling the chamber. Elias realized with a thrill and a chill that the creature could defend itself, but it needed him to guide it, to trust it. He whispered, "We can do this together." Its tiny body shivered against him, but its eyes glowed fiercely. Then came the shock. The shadow lunged, claws extended, and Elias braced for impact. But the hatchling erupted with a burst of energy, brighter than anything before. The force knocked the shadow back against the far wall, sending dust and rocks cascading. Elias stumbled but stayed upright, clutching the hatchling. His mind raced. This was no longer just survival, they were awakening something ancient and dangerous at the same time. The chamber trembled, the murals glowing brighter, and Elias realized the truth. This hatchling was the key to a power he could barely comprehend. If they survived tonight, they might not just live, they might reshape the fate of its entire species. But then the pulse subsided, and the massive shadow rose slowly from the darkness, eyes fixed on them. Elias held the hatchling tighter. Whatever came next, it would be the ultimate test of courage, intelligence, and determination. And he knew, deep in his bones, the next move would decide everything. Elias's breath came in ragged gasps as the massive shadow rose, taller than any predator bird he'd seen, scales glinting like blackened steel. Its eyes locked on him and the hatchling, and the growl shook the chamber walls. Dust rained down, making the murals flicker in ghostly light. Every instinct screamed danger, but Elias's mind refused to freeze. He held the hatchling close, feeling its pulse thrum like a drumbeat against his chest. He couldn't fail. Not now. Not ever. The hatchling chirped, its wings flaring, sending waves of bright energy across the chamber. The massive shadow recoiled slightly, claws scraping the stone floor, but it was far from defeated. Elias realized the creature was testing them, gauging strength, probing for weakness. He needed a plan, and fast. He scanned the chamber, eyes darting over murals, glowing pools and jagged stones. Something clicked. The murals depicted dragons using the pool's energy to defend themselves, to fight impossible odds. Elias's mind raced. If the hatchling could channel the energy from the larger pool, maybe it could create a barrier, or a weapon. But the risk was enormous. One misstep and the hatchling could be destroyed. "Listen to me," he whispered, kneeling and holding it steady. "You can do this. Focus the energy." The hatchling trembled but chirped back, a pulse of light coursing along its tiny wings. Elias guided it toward the largest pool in the chamber, the liquid rippling as they approached. He steadied the hatchling on the edge. Its tiny claws dipped in, and the pool reacted instantly, glowing brighter, sending waves of energy up the walls. The murals shimmered, almost alive, and the shadow hesitated, clearly wary of the sudden surge. Elias seized the moment. He kicked loose a jagged stone toward the shadow, not to hurt it but to distract. It lunged, talons extended, and Elias rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a swipe. The hatchling pulsed again, brighter, wings beating rapidly. The energy from the pool formed a glowing shield around them, rippling with protective force. Elias's eyes widened. He had not expected this to work so quickly. The tiny creature, weak and starving just hours ago, now radiated power, ready to defend itself. The shadow recoiled, then charged again, faster this time. Elias gritted his teeth. He had no weapon, no backup, only his wits and the hatchling's trust. He grabbed a piece of broken mural, a shard of hardened stone etched with symbols, and threw it into the shadow's path. The shard caught a part of its claw, momentarily slowing it. Another micro payoff, a small victory earned through intelligence and quick reflexes. The hatchling pulsed one final time, brighter than ever. A wave of light shot out from its wings, striking the shadow full force. Elias shielded his eyes, and when he looked again, the creature had been knocked back, sliding across the chamber floor. The murals flickered, and for a heartbeat, Elias saw images of dragons soaring through skies, defending worlds, bending energy with their will. The hatchling's pulse had not just protected them, it had awakened something ancient, something the predator could not comprehend. Elias's heart pounded as the shadow struggled to rise. Dust and rocks rained down from the ceiling. He knew they didn't have much time. "We need to move," he shouted, grabbing the hatchling. Its wings beat weakly, still radiating energy, but it obeyed. They sprinted toward a narrow passage revealed by the earlier murals, the glow of the pool lighting their way. The shadow lunged one last time, talons scraping dangerously close, but Elias kicked a loose rock into its path. It stumbled, crashing against the far wall with a roar. The hatchling flared once more, a bright pulse rippling through the chamber. The shadow froze, clearly overwhelmed by the energy. Elias felt a surge of hope. He had never felt such a mix of fear and triumph. They had survived. Somehow. They reached the far passage, narrow and twisting, leading upward toward what looked like a higher chamber. Elias didn't dare pause. He clutched the hatchling tightly, feeling its tiny body vibrate with energy. Its wings brushed against him, a small sign of trust, of connection. He whispered, "We made it this far, now let's see what's next." As they climbed, the chamber behind them shook violently. Stones fell, the murals flickered, and Elias realized the shadow was still alive, still watching, but it could not follow them here. They had bought themselves a temporary reprieve, but the danger was far from over. Finally, they reached a ledge overlooking a massive chamber filled with pools of glowing liquid and skeletal remains of dragons long gone. Elias's chest tightened. The hatchling chirped softly, stepping toward one of the larger pools. He knelt beside it, heart swelling with awe and fear. "This is your chance," he said, voice trembling. "If you survive, if you grow, you could change everything." The hatchling dipped its claws into the pool. Light surged, brighter than anything Elias had seen, bathing the chamber in energy. Its wings unfurled fully, scales shimmering, eyes glowing fiercely. The creature he had saved was no longer weak. It was powerful, alive in a way that filled the room with awe. Elias felt tears prick at his eyes. This tiny life, so vulnerable just hours ago, had grown into something magnificent, something beyond him. Then a shadow flickered across the far wall, not the predator from before. Something else, larger, moving with purpose and not hostile but aware. Elias stiffened. Whatever had created these chambers, whatever had left the murals and the pools, it was still out there, watching. The hatchling chirped again, almost knowingly, as if sensing the presence. Elias held it close. They had survived the impossible together, but this was not the end. The pulse of energy from the hatchling seemed to reach out, resonating with the unseen watcher. Elias realized that tonight had changed everything. Not just for them, but for the future of the hatchling species. And in that moment, with the light reflecting in his eyes and the hatchling glowing like a living beacon, Elias understood. The real challenge, the true test, was only beginning. Elias sank to his knees, still clutching the hatchling close. Its wings beat gently against his chest, pulsing with a soft, steady glow now that the immediate danger had passed. The massive shadow that had haunted the canyon lay still far below, unable, or unwilling, to climb the twisting passages that led to this hidden chamber. For the first time in hours, Elias allowed himself a slow breath. They had survived. The hatchling's eyes met his, wide and curious, no longer filled with the desperate fear that had defined it hours before. Its pulse of light flickered with a rhythm that seemed almost like a heartbeat in sync with his own. Elias felt a warmth in his chest he couldn't name, a mix of pride, awe, and something deeper, responsibility. He had chosen to save this tiny creature, but somehow, it had chosen him too. He rose slowly, scanning the chamber. Pools of glowing liquid reflected the murals etched into the walls, dragons of all shapes and sizes, standing proud, guarding, thriving. Some were skeletal, reminders of a species nearly lost. Others glowed faintly, their energy preserved in the alien technology around them. Elias realized what the hatchling was stepping into, the remnants of a long-lost civilization, one that had revered dragons as protectors. And now this hatchling was the last link. The hatchling chirped softly and stepped closer to one of the larger pools. Elias knelt beside it, hands trembling slightly. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe. You can grow here, learn. You can be what they were." Its tiny claws dipped into the pool and immediately, a ripple of light surged outward. The chamber seemed to hum in response, walls vibrating with a soft resonance that filled the space with energy. Elias watched, fascinated and terrified at the same time. Over the next few moments, the hatchling's wings unfolded fully. Its scales shimmered in shades of green and gold, reflecting the light from the pools. The pulse of energy it emitted was steady now, controlled and immensely powerful. Elias placed a hand gently on its back, feeling the heat of life, energy and potential. He realized that this creature, once helpless, could now defend itself, and perhaps even the species it represented. He smiled, a mix of relief and awe. "You've come so far," he said softly. "From starving and scared, to this. You did it." The hatchling chirped again, wings fluttering against him, a tiny sound that carried the weight of triumph. Elias felt a profound sense of connection. He had saved it, yes, but it had also saved something inside him, the spark of courage, determination, and hope he had carried into this alien world. Then, from the far corner of the chamber, a subtle movement caught his eye. A faint shadow flickered across the glowing walls, not threatening but deliberate, observant. Elias stiffened, heart quickening. Whatever had left the murals, whatever had built these pools and watched over these dragons, it was still out there. It wasn't hostile yet, but it was aware. The hatchling's pulse brightened slightly, sensing it, reacting to it. Elias realized the truth: their journey wasn't over. This place held secrets, powers, and dangers that neither he nor the hatchling fully understood. But for the first time he felt capable of facing them. Together they had survived impossible odds, outsmarted predators, and unlocked a spark of ancient power. They were ready for whatever came next. He turned to the hatchling, whispering, "We'll figure it out. Together." Its small wings brushed against his arm, almost in affirmation. Elias's eyes scanned the chamber once more. The murals hinted at other hatchlings, other dragons perhaps still surviving in hidden places. The energy in the pools rippled in response, almost like a silent invitation. A soft rumble echoed through the chamber, not threatening but expectant. Elias took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him. The hatchling's pulse mirrored his own heartbeat, steady and sure. He realized that saving one life had set in motion something far greater: the revival of a species, the awakening of ancient guardians, and perhaps even a chance to protect this alien world from threats he couldn't yet imagine. Elias stepped closer to the hatchling, holding it against him for one last moment. "You chose me," he said softly, voice trembling with emotion. "But maybe I was always meant to find you." The creature chirped, wings fluttering, and Elias felt the full weight of what they had accomplished. One tiny life, saved through courage, intelligence, and determination, could now shape the fate of an entire species. From the chamber's highest ledge, a faint glow appeared, pulsing in time with the hatchling's energy. Elias's eyes widened. The light formed patterns almost like a signal, or a message. He didn't understand it yet, but he knew one thing: this was only the beginning. There were other mysteries to uncover, other dangers lurking beyond the cavern walls, and other hatchlings like this one that might still need him. Elias stood tall, hatchling secure in his arms, and looked out over the pools and murals. He felt a surge of hope. The impossible had been survived. Courage had prevailed. Compassion had triumphed. And together, he and the hatchling were ready for whatever came next. A faint whisper of wind swept through the chamber, carrying with it a sound that made Elias freeze, a distant, eerie cry, faint but unmistakable. Another hatchling? Or something else entirely? He gripped the creature tighter, pulse racing, eyes wide. The adventure wasn't over. And in that moment, with light reflecting off the pools and the hatchling glowing like a beacon of hope, Elias knew that the next challenge was waiting. Somewhere in the shadows, a bigger story was beginning, and they would face it together.